You could win one of 3 trips to see Taylor Swift on the Eras Tour this fall. Text the national keyword RED to 95819 now to enter for your chance to win.
Now,
on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
7:07 right now on O'Connor and Company. Thanks for tuning in here. We got 2 hours in the can, as they like to say. And if you missed our first 2 hours of the program, please subscribe to our podcast. You're going to hear some outrageous things that Patrice said earlier this morning. Honestly, it's like, I don't know how we get it out on the air, except that it's so early in the morning.
And you know I'm very vibrant in the morning.
You are.
I'm super jazzed.
I know.
Especially when I hear ridiculous stuff.
You want to hear Patrice Unplugged, and the only way to do that is to download our podcast every day so you can hear what you missed. In the meantime, here's what you're about to hear. Coming up at 7:35, Al Corbi is... he's building bunkers for billionaires, and we want to know what Zuckerberg knows that we don't know. At 8:05, Billboard Chris will join us on some news about transgender therapies for children in particular, and some new studies that suggest maybe we haven't gotten all the scientific information about this. And at 8:35, Nick Minnock, local reporter for Channel 7 WJLA, about Loudoun County taxes. Spoiler alert, they're going up. Yesterday, we saw the Biden administration basically throw Benjamin Netanyahu, his government, and the people of Israel under the bus. They are giving Israel an ultimatum, and you even heard Anthony Blinken compare Israel to Hamas, saying that Israel will quickly be indistinguishable from the murderous terrorists that slaughtered innocent people on October 7th. Here's a quick exchange with John Kirby in the White House press briefing.
On October 7th, President Biden said, "My administration's support for Israel's security is rock solid and unwavering." That is not true anymore, correct?
No, it is true. Still true today.
How is his support unwavering, but you're also reconsidering policy choices?
Both can be true.
They cannot be true. They're completely different things.
No. I'm sorry.
He is wavering.
Well, John Kirby is a former admiral in the Navy, so he knows certain terms like polishing a piece of excrement, and that's kind of what he's left with there on the Biden policy in the Middle East. Derrick Anderson is joining us. He is former Army, a Green Beret, in fact, and combat veteran. He's running for the Republican nomination in the 7th District of Virginia. I don't know, Derrick Anderson. Sure sounds like there's a whole lot of wavering there going, and it's almost like the Biden administration is on the wrong side of this conflict. What do you think?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And good morning, Larry
and
Patrice. Always a pleasure to be on with y'all. This is the Biden administration's equivocation at its best, right? I think that it's very interesting to me that the attacks that happened on October 7th were only 5 months ago, and I think the Biden administration needs to go back in history and remember us, the United States, on 9/11.
Yeah.
Remember 5 months after 9/11, we were still invading into Afghanistan. We were targeting the Taliban. We were still doing Green Berets on the ground. My brothers were over there trying to figure out what the heck was going on, right? And so we see 5 months later, and the Biden administration's already equivocating. Imagine if that was the rhetoric 5 months after 9/11. You would see the entire American public going up in arms, in my opinion.
Yeah. Derrick Anderson, you have said that Hamas should be wiped off the map, and I think there are a lot of people who would love to see that as well. How exactly do you do that? Is there a way to wipe Hamas off the map and not see the other destruction that we're seeing right now? And yes, innocent people dying in the conflict too, which again, nobody wants to see innocent people die. So how do you wipe Hamas off the map and also do it in a way that doesn't see what we're seeing right now, or is that possible?
Yeah, Larry, it's always tough. I mean, war is hell, right? People have always said that for years. And I served in Iraq and Afghanistan. I have a lot of my fellow Green Berets that were in the conflict in Syria against ISIS. One of the things in Syria that we saw was, we know that you're not going to take every single terrorist off the map. If that was the case, we would have done that a long time ago, right? There's no blueprint on taking every single bad guy off the battlefield. But what we can do is we can take a whole bunch of them off the battlefield. At the end of the day, in Syria, we saw that happen. We pretty much contained them into one small area within Syria, that is ISIS, after we took them to town. I think that's likely what the IDF and the Israeli Special Operations Forces, and to your point, Larry, you mentioned it, no one wants to see innocent civilians die. Nobody. And I trained with the Israeli Special Forces and the IDF for a while in Israel, and then I actually brought them stateside and trained them. And I can tell you, the Israelis understand. They're very smart, they're very engaged, and they're very good military. And I can tell you, they understand that when there are these civilian casualties on the battlefield, they understand the impact it has internationally in the news. They understand that they are under a microscope at all times. So, the Israelis are doing everything they can to do precision attacks, whether it be through, aerial attacks, whether it be through munitions and or guys or gals on the ground. They are very good at what they do. And what does make this, and a lot of people still forget that there are hostages still in play.
Yeah.
We don't know where they're at. I'm sure that the Israelis are still trying to use their intelligence networks to identify where these hostages are at. So it is not an easy task, especially when you contain this entire conflict into the Gaza Strip, which is, a little bit over the size of Washington, D.C. with tunnels. So it's not an easy task by any means.
I 100% agree, Derrick. Thinking about Congress's role in all of this, I'm sure part of what President Biden was speaking to yesterday and all these news reports were for an audience that is on Capitol Hill, and whether it pertains to funding for this conflict or Ukraine or any other international funding, he's absolutely trying to get Congress to pony up some more money for international conflicts in general. If you are elected, what would be your perspective on how Congress should be approaching funding these different wars, particularly considering we are not directly involved in any of them, but kind of indirectly supporting different sides?
Yeah, I mean, we saw this again. I can go back to Syria too, because Syria is kind of a blueprint of what we see internationally right now. There were multiple different factions. There's the Iranians, there were the Russians, there were the Syrians, there were the rebels. There was ISIS. I mean, literally, it was a melting pot into Syria. We had to be very meticulous, and I think that there were some lessons learned from in Syria. We were sending equipment and individuals into Syria to fight ISIS and some of the other bad guys in that area. And one of the lessons learned that Congressman Mike Waltz, he's the only Green Beret in Congress. He and I are very good friends, and he talks to me all the time that one of the things we kind of failed at in Syria was not tracking our equipment, whether it was through GPS trackers or what have you, because what we started seeing is individuals were going into Syria with our weapon systems and munitions, and they were just disappearing on the battlefield. We saw a whole bunch of individuals walking back to us with empty hands saying, yeah, we need some more. So I think really what it comes down to is accountability, making sure that when we are giving equipment, when we are giving funds, that it's going to the right people. We know where it's going. And if it does get lost, we can actually track where it's going. So I think accountability is a big aspect of it.
The 7th District of Virginia is an open seat this time around. Abigail Spanberger moving on and running for governor. She ran as a CIA analyst, and she led with national security issues when she ran against Dave Bratt. And Derrick, many of the Republicans who are looking to get the nomination, including yourself, have a military history, military background, and it looks like Eugene Vindman is going to be the Democrat nominee. And of course, he's a different kind of warrior, but he wore the uniform. When you campaign in that district, are you hearing this as a top priority? Oftentimes, it's the economy, it's domestic policies, and things like that. Are you hearing from the voters that much of what they care about is national security and issues with our military?
It's certainly on the forefront, especially when you see the Biden administration. There were some recent reports, Larry, that the Biden administration was going to make some cuts to the Navy. And if you look in Virginia, we've got a lot of Navy installations, right?
Yeah.
We're kind of a hub for the Navy. We've also seen the Biden administration talk about cutting back on our special operations forces by 10%. They mentioned this back in October. Secretary Austin did. So it is important. We've got 3 military installations in the 7th Congressional District, specifically Marine Corps Base Quantico. So it's important. But, going back, you kind of hinted at it, Larry. We're hearing it I walk around the district every single day. We were in 5 counties just this past weekend. And I can tell you that the economy, the cost of living, and the border is important. I will tell you here in the 7th Congressional District, people did not take kindly to that MSNBC. I think it was MSNBC who kind of joked at Virginia and said, well, there are borders with West Virginia. We did not take kindly to that because we're seeing the crime, we're seeing the fentanyl, we're seeing the drug overdoses in our district because we have I-95 that runs right through the middle of our district. So, I mean, that is what I'm hearing on the ground from folks every day. Real
fast, Derrick, I've only got 30 seconds, but you say you trained with IDF. Do you have any doubt if those men and women are just allowed to do the job that they've been trained to do, that they will be able to accomplish their mission and end this war?
I mean, I have great confidence in them. The training with those individuals, they're top notch. They really are. I've been nothing but impressed with them. As a matter of fact, when we went and trained with the IDF over in Israel, we brought them back to the United States because we wanted to learn from them as well. They have a lot of great tools and tactics.
So maybe just get out of their way and let them. Military. Maybe get out of their way and let them do their job. And these armchair warriors in D.C. who say, "Well, it's been 6 months." Yeah, geez, guys, it took you 20 years and you still couldn't fix Afghanistan, and look how you ended it. So
I know.
maybe give Israel a little bit more time to finish the job. They know what they're doing. Derrick Anderson, thanks for joining us. DerrickAnderson.com for all the information on his campaign. Of course, we're staying neutral during the primary process, and we look forward to talking to all the candidates.
WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
Live
from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios.
Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
So much truth, you'll hope for traffic so you can hear it all on the Vince Colonnade Show, weekdays 3 to 6, right here on WMAL.
AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Yeah. So AOC likes to position herself to sort of lecture corporations in this country, businesses. She is a former bartender, after all. And she likes to let people know exactly the right way to do business, the Bernie Sanders model, like a Marxist. Well, Kevin O'Leary, businessman and co-host of Shark Tank, he had his own observations and opinion about AOC's business knowledge.
I look at AOC, what an incredibly successful politician she is, and what a horrific manager she is. Her jurisdiction looks like a third world country, and yet she's great at social media and making outrageous statements and getting $5 at a time on, every way she can on social. Good for her. But wow, look what she did when Amazon came knocking for 10,000
Yeah, that
jobs.
To me blew my mind. How does that you survive?
So why would you want to reward that? Why wouldn't you say, excuse me, could I get better management, please? I live here. I pay taxes here, and I'd like a job. And I don't think you're doing a great job for me as a manager. How about I hire somebody else? That's what I would encourage. Not that she isn't just great as a politician. There are countries that have weak leaders. There are states that have bad governors. I think people, the great thing about democracy is say, we can do better. Right. Putting up my head, let's do better.
Do you think as you talk, I get this, it's not personal, it's just business?
Just business.
But everything is personal now.
No, not for me.
I mean, what you did right there is you gave her a compliment in terms of her showmanship, and how she does well on social media, and she used her platform, and then you criticize the deed. You're like,
she's
you lost.
Manager.
Yeah, you're not, and that should.
Which
that
one
makes you. There's a lot of words I could throw, and I agree with you. I'll say it with you. I'll say it. I don't. I'm like, who voted for this? And you can see it across the board. You can see it doesn't have to be AOC. You could take it at a super Republican guy.
Example.
Yeah, but she's a perfect example.
What
Who cares
did I
about
say
the
that
camera?
wasn't true? Is she
Nothing.
She's a great politician. Let's celebrate that. Is she a bad manager? 100%. She's terrible. They're both true.
So if she was a business,
I wouldn't.
Would you pass? Or would she on Shark Tank?
Let
would she
me
be
be specific.
Yeah.
I wouldn't let her manage a candy store.
Wow.
I sort of like the way he goes about his political analysis. By the way, that is on Tyrus's Outkick podcast there that you heard that. But yeah, what can AOC do?
So if she was a business,
I wouldn't.
Would you pass? Or would she on Shark Tank?
Let me be specific.
Yeah.
I wouldn't let her manage a candy store.
Wow.
Well,
I mean, he's certainly called others like cockroaches because they're just leeches off of not to be it's hard to not call it derogatory.
Yeah, he meant it in a nice way.
But I mean, they're just kind of bottom feeders. He's also used that term.
Well, let's not forget AOC what she doesn't know about business, she makes up for her understanding of criminal law.
Excuse me, sir. RICO is not a crime. It is a category.
That's right. And a really great singer. there, right?
AOC is the gift that keeps on giving.
She is. And as I echo Kevin O'Leary's remarks, I think that she's a great politician, great at social media, great at making headlines, although I will differ with her. That's not fair to say that I wouldn't hire her to manage candy store, because I think there's actually a lot involved in managing a candy store, and I don't know if she
look at her neighborhood. I mean, it's become, people are calling it a third world marketplace. It's a dumpster, and between the trash and the open solicitation for prostitution, that place is become the, whatever President Trump called some of these countries around the world. But it's here in America, and the problem is it was a thriving community until Democratic policies ramped up at the southern border, and everything else, policing, etc.
Yeah.
And now you
Corona,
see the
Jackson
impact
Heights,
of it.
Elmhurst, northwestern Queens. It's not good right now. That's not all her fault. Listen, she gets the job as a congresswoman. She goes to New York. She thinks her whole job is to deliver sound bites for cable news and work on Washington, D.C. She's going to say, that's the mayor's problem, which it is, by the way. Across the board, it's one-party rule in New York, whether it's Congress or in the mayor's office. And you're right. It is an absolute disaster
And you can't
area.
deny, as what Mr. O'Leary said about Amazon, 10,000 jobs that would have come to her community.
Yeah.
And she denied that. I just don't understand, though, why people continue to put her in office.
It is. It's an absolute crime, a total, complete crime. Oh, sorry.
Excuse me, sir. RICO is not a crime.
That's right, I
It is
forgot.
a category.
It's not a crime.
Now,
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It is 7:37. We continue slogging through this Friday morning. What do you mean slogging through? We're ending the week strong, and we're launching into the weekend, and the rain's behind us, and we got sunny skies. Why are you complaining, Larry? Patrice, help me out here.
It is a Friday.
It is.
We've got lots to be excited about.
Patrice Onwuka is here. I am here. Oh, by the way, later this evening between 6 and 9 right here on WMAL, I have the honor of filling in for the great one, Mark Levin.
Awesome.
So if you want to hear me on your way home as well, you know where to be. I mean, you're always going to keep it right here on MAL anyway, aren't you? Listen, coming up at 8:05, our friend Billboard Chris is going to join us. 8:35, Nick Minnock, Channel 7, WJLA, a new tax increase in Loudoun County. Also, Nick is a finalist for an Associated Press Award for some of his great local journalism. We love to reward local journalists, so talk to Nick about that. I am Larry O'Connor. That is Patrice Onwuka. Patrice?
Yes.
We have spoken earlier this program about the odd stories we keep hearing about billionaires creating bunkers for themselves. Mark Zuckerberg, famously out in his Hawaii mansion, has created an incredibly elaborate and luxurious and some of these have this is my favorite part of the Fox report we were playing earlier.
How much are you willing to spend on a doomsday bunker? Want a ring of fire protecting you like a moat, or water cannons to repel invaders?
Yes and yes. Joining us now is Al Corbi. He is the president and founder of SAFE. And part of what Al does, this is a Virginia-based company, is that strategically armored and fortified environments, by the way, is what SAFE stands for. And all right, Al, what's it going to take for me to have the Ring of Fire moat or the water cannons? Because you got me. I'm ready. Let's go.
Well, we probably should start with lunch. And,
I always move a little too fast. I'm very aggressive. All right, so let's first, the fundamentals here. Are you seeing an uptick, not just on these elaborate and luxurious billionaire bunkers, but are you seeing an uptick in general of people wanting to prepare for what could be a major crisis in this country?
You know, it comes in two levels. At the very highest level, it's always been there. I mean, think of the kings with their castles, right? I don't know, the Egyptians with their pyramids. Yeah. At the highest level, those people have always had all of this. There's nothing new. Now, come down a level, still, above my pay grade, but, come down a level. And, people are starting to say, oh, wow, can I have these things? Can I really protect myself? So they're kind of in the oh, wow stage right now. Okay. And I guess between the combination of civil unrest and, the global theater that we're hearing about, potential World War III, yeah, people are kind of saying, well, maybe I should think about this.
Well, Al, I'm curious. What are the most basic necessities that any household of any price income level should actually have? I mean, it may not be feasible to afford to build a bunker, but what are the things that you actually should have in place that, maybe are not dependent on the electric grid, maybe not dependent on, a water sewer system?
God, do I like talking to you. Nobody goes there. That's exactly what the dialogue should be. That should be it. Because think about it. We've already lived through it, remember, with different pandemics, different climatic conditions. You go to your local grocery store and the shelves are all empty. And, remember the toilet paper, frenzy. Well, if people would bring the narrative down to what you just said, then we get out of this silliness and we really get down to some place that makes sense. And think about it. Air, right? Bang. The first thing that's important to us all is air, because that's the shortest period of time we have if we don't have it. And then it's water. And then it's food. So if you just look at this thing logically, and you want to take care of your family, you look at the things that you have to have and the amount of time that you have to get them. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
But now, almost most important, think of this. Everybody's talking about the bunkers. And yes, SAFE does the world's most advanced bunkers. Okay, fine. But wait a minute. You could have $1 billion bunker that if you cut yourself on your way in because, something happened. Obviously, you don't go into these things unless it's a bad civil situation. So something happens to you, you cut yourself. Now you've got $1 billion bunker and you're going to bleed out in 5 minutes.
Wow.
What's it matter? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So nobody seems to be focusing on what you just said. What do we need right now for my family? And the very first thing is a really good first aid kit. And I mean something maybe a little beyond what you would buy at, CVS or who knows. Maybe they have them now.
This is why Patrice is on the team. She's in charge of these things and thinking this stuff through.
Well, actually, we're going to come and steal her away from you.
Hey, don't even, please, that's not the first time I've heard that, man. Hey, real fast, on the, the headlines are going to all the, the gajillionaires, and you're right. I mean, this is like, kings and pharaohs, and they want to keep what they have, and they paranoid, but seriously, Al, is there something they know that we don't know? Everyone keeps talking about the power grid. What can we do if we do lose the power grid? What should people be preparing for in that instance?
And see, now I don't know how old you are. I'm older than dirt. I remember when we really were afraid of nuclear weapons. And somehow that narrative's gotten carried over. But that again is the silliness. That's, I don't know. What you just said is true. It's the grid. It's the idea that we become so dependent upon electricity that if the electricity goes out, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, we lose everything. We lose water. The things that, I'm sorry, hon, what was your name again?
Oh, Patrice.
Patrice,
yes.
The things you were talking about, those very things, we instantly get taken away, even the air to some extent. And this, it would take longer to get into that. But all the things you talked about go away instantly if we lose electricity. And then you're not worried about the Russians or the Chinese. You're worried about your next door neighbor.
Oh, I'm always worried about my next door neighbors. Al Corbi, we got to leave it there.
So
the
much,
company's
Al.
called Strategically Armored and Fortified Environments, or SAFE. They're based in Virginia, and Al will take care of your prepping needs if you need them. Thanks, Al.
Thanks a lot, guys.
7:44. The plan that David Trone had to sort of dip into all of his wealth from the wine outlet, or not wine outlets, excuse me.
No.
Total Wine and More, right?
Yeah,
is that his
I
store?
think that's his.
Yeah. And basically buy the Senate seat in Maryland. It's hitting a snag here. Because Angela also Brooks, your Prince George's County executive, has gotten a lot of major endorsements recently from Democrats, including Jamie Raskin.
Yeah.
Mostly because David Trone likes to drop racial slurs just sort of offhandedly.
So this Republican jigaboo that
See, that's not good.
Oh my gosh!
Why is that even in
I
his
forget
vocabulary?
Exactly.
Yeah. So they had a debate planned. It's basically down to the two of them, also Brooks and Trone.
Yeah.
And they had a debate that was supposed to happen on April 23rd, combination of NBC Washington, Meet the Press, and WBAL and Maryland Public Television. There's all these people involved getting this debate going. And now it's been called off because David Trone just couldn't commit to it.
Ooh.
I mean, he's got a very busy work schedule.
Well, his office is saying that between his house schedule and the Baltimore Bridge collapse, he just doesn't have the time to tell the citizens of Maryland why he deserves their vote.
You know, our friend Matthew Foldy, who really made his name by pointing out the fact that Trone, who lives, 20 minutes from the Capitol, his office was closed all the time. He wasn't showing up ever. All during the pandemic, the mail was stacking up. Yeah, well, he's busy counting all the money from his wine sales. Matthew Foldy commented on this and said, David Trone skipping work is the most David Trone thing ever. It's so on brand for him.
See, here's his problem. He thought this was going to be a cakewalk, and then Larry Hogan jumped in, and then he used a racial slur.
Right.
So now I think he's flailing.
Yeah, he doesn't. Even if he gets the nomination, it's going to be a hard race, assuming Hogan wins the nomination, which we still have to see play out. But either way, David Trone has really made a name for himself, or I don't know if it's a name.
So this Republican jigaboo
that's not good at all. 7:53.